Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another Front Office Sports webinar. Joe Lonergan here with you. Hope you're all safe, happy, and healthy. Today, we're going to be talking fan engagement and the return to creating good in-venue experiences with fans and without. We have some great folks lined up to talk to you guys from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, NASCAR, and of course, our friends at Satisfi Labs. Thank you so much to them for helping us put this on today. But the focus of this is going to be digital activations, both for in-venue and for the folks at home. So if we could get started today, would love if we could just kind of go around the panel, starting with you, Donnie. If you want to tell the audience just a little bit about who you are and what your company does, and who's your daddy and what does he do?
My dad's a pastor, actually. Donnie White, CEO, co-founder of Satisfi Labs. We produce an interactive answer engine. It's a product that answers questions and provides a real asset for the fan to get all digital media by the initial search, so that brands like NASCAR and Tampa can have a one-to-one relationship with the fan about anything from schedule scores, ticketing, food and beverage when appropriate, and really own that relationship. We're about almost 4 years old, and we have 200 clients in sports entertainment.
Fantastic. Christi, if you want to tell us a little bit about you and your role at the Buccaneers.
Hey, yeah, Christi Bedan. I'm the Vice President of Digital and Media at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that includes everything from our content creation and social strategy, but also digital operations, which is kind of the focus of the conversation today.
Fantastic. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Tim Clark from NASCAR.
Yes, thank you. So Tim Clark, I oversee the digital business here at NASCAR, which includes kind of our platform operations on websites and apps and fan-facing experiences, as well as our content on digital and social channels, as well as some growth opportunities, esports and sports betting and the like.
Fantastic. Well, we'll jump into some prepared questions then as we go, though. For those of you in the audience, if you have questions for our panelists as we go, please feel free to drop those in the questions tab. At about the 45-50-minute mark, we'll get to as many of those as we can. Or if any pop up that are particularly relevant to what we're talking about at that point in the show, we'll jump into them then. But you get the idea. And of course, feel free to talk amongst yourselves in the chat. We're all about making new connections here. So to start off with, Don, we'll start with you. As far as like digital's role in reopening, how has Satisfi kind of been approaching bringing fans back into venues with your partners, and what role does digital really have in that strategy, in your opinion?
I mean, digital to me is the only way to access the volume of people that we have to where they are. We've had a product that was primarily an in-venue product in 2019, and then 2020, obviously things shifted quickly in March. Technology was built to adapt to new learnings on the fly and understand what new needs there were. So I think the first step is, how do you connect with your fan, reopening or not, just in the 24/7, 365 calendar. And so we were able to handle both creating some security for the fans that had tremendous uncertainty, and then we just saw the shift from, what do I do at an event, to, well, where can I watch, and can I stream it, and is there a YouTube, and questions about social policies, which were important in sports and especially in the summer. So we just were able to continue that relationship and now extend it into the reopening going forward.
Awesome. Christi, what's that process been like for you guys in the NFL?
Yeah, so we were open at a limited capacity, and I think the bringing fans back, the role of digital in particular, is very much kind of twofold. One, like, how are you communicating to fans at scale what new policies are and what the reopening looks like? And then two, once you're at the stadium, how do you make people feel more comfortable and use technology to kind of provide more comfort that, minimize interactions for fans, especially in a COVID world. So everything from mobile ticketing to communication to mobile ordering. What is all that technology that you can implement in a reopening strategy?
Certainly makes sense. Tim, what about you guys?
Yeah, ours, this year, certainly unusual, among other adjectives would come to mind. I think we started our season, so we were off and running in mid-February with the Daytona 500 and got a handful of other races under our belts. And then obviously the universe had different plans. So, our season was suspended for several weeks. And then when we ultimately went back, there certainly are some challenges, but I think, to Christi's point, there's also opportunities as well. And I think we were able to benefit from some of the existing infrastructure, existing, investments that we had made in digital and virtual platforms. So I think it was, we talk a lot about making lemonade out of lemons. So I think that the engagement with fans, both engaging and new, was still important. It just needed to manifest itself in different ways. So, whether that's extending our ability to engage fans through digital or social or second screen channels, or just evolving that end venue experience. I mean, I think that's where you get a lot of creative thinking and new approaches that I think ultimately, looking back on how we were to weather this season, seemed to work out pretty well.
Gotcha. So you guys touched on it a little bit there, and just in terms of making fans feel safe and, not a post-COVID-19 world, certainly, but now that we are all kind of used to it being a daily part of our lives. In your all's opinion, Christi, we'll start with you. What do you think is digital's role in bringing back consumer and fan trust in that regard?
Yeah, I think it goes to the communication and reassurance that, these processes are in place. I think it goes to what technology can you implement to minimize those interactions, and COVID in particular. And then 3, I think there's also the element of giving fans a forum to feel like they can voice concerns, and a forum they can get answers in a timely manner. And I think Donnie touched on it a little bit earlier, and kind of the Satisfi platform, but we've expanded into our AI technology simply to give people kind of that one-to-one response and timely interaction, to give them that reassurance, and then give them abilities to provide feedback in real time that can give people that comfort level and trust to be back in the stadium.
Okay. Tim, would you say you guys have had a similar experience?
Absolutely. Listen, I think I don't know if I would call it the mistake, but I think maybe the approach that a lot of folks in our space will make is they want, big home run solutions for every problem. And I just don't think that's realistic. So, I think there are tools and extensions and platforms that may not reach, maybe quote unquote scale in terms of audience size, but they fill a very specific need. And I think for all of us, the in-venue fan experience, I think is top of the mountain, right? I think that's what is going to create meaningful fan engagements and long-lasting fan engagements. But broadcast fills a very specific role, and second screen experiences and digital and virtual and social experiences do as well. And it's not an either or proposition. It's I think the ability to create that that rainbow effect where you're getting the best of both worlds, depending on who the fan is, who the consumer is, where they are. The idea for us specifically at NASCAR of what I love for hundreds of thousands of fans to come to the venue and watch live, absolutely. If that challenge exists either because of COVID or other challenges, then we just need to be prepared to have other experiences for fans based on their preference.
Yeah,
Donnie,
totally.
Sorry, Christi, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just gonna add on the finding where fans are, whether it's the fans at the stadium or out. There's a niche. This experience in general, you kind of find the various niches that fans want to live in across digital platforms, and I think that's been super interesting all year.
Donnie, in your experience talking with Satisfi's other partners around the sports space, have they offered any additional insight into that?
Yeah, I think information is power. And what Spider-Man said is that with great power comes great responsibility. So I think one of the value adds, I might get a sponsorship with Marvel. But I think what's been really consistent is, like what Christi just said, the fans want to know from the source. And if you were to Google some of the questions that fans ask our platform, you would find sources that are giving them answers that are inaccurate or could actually potentially kill a revenue opportunity. Even ticketing questions now are being answered by not the primary ticketing provider. And so now I, as a fan, just saw something that made me feel unsafe, insecure, or just totally misinformed. So even in our tourism industry customers, where we learn the most is we saw so many of them show us how, look, if you Googled this, here's what would happen. But if they asked us, we were able to get them to the right place. That's just a fascinating 2020 lesson. I think we all agree COVID's been difficult, extremely difficult. The information about it has been 10 times worse. So we're trying to heal those things with our product, and we're just thankful that the technology has adapted so quickly as we had planned it to.
Tim, you kind of mentioned second screen experiences and the like when it comes to your all's digital strategy. Christi, starting again with you, where for you guys have virtual and second screen experiences kind of fit into the full fan experience this year?
Yeah, if you look at the year as a whole, I think there were kind of three key virtual second screen elements that we were looking at. It's the virtual events, starting with, we did the draft party as a virtual event back in April. And then the second screen experience in stadium, which we offer both for our general public and then a kind of a exclusive portion of it for our season pass members who can't be in the stadium. And then I think you've got to look at the gaming, the free to play engagement piece as part of that second screen experience as well, plus social platforms. But how are you engaging with fans throughout the game, about the game, and that kind of free to play method? So I think those three elements of second screen virtual technology are we're pretty big in our strategy this year.
Tim, for you guys, any specific activations you guys pulled off in that regard that you're particularly proud of?
Yeah, I think, one that I think is interesting is, we talked about that kind of real racing into virtual and then back to real. What was interesting to see about that is, one of the networks, I think it was NBC, used to, when they would put reruns on, they would market it as, if you've never seen it before, it's new to you. And I think we had that with some of our second screen experiences that had existed for a while, that we had in place. And as we went into, when the season was suspended, we had a pretty significant focus on esports. And then coming back, I think a lot of our fans and maybe even new viewers were kind of asking, well, what's that experience going to look like on the other side when we go back to real racing? And I think things like, in-car audio or in-car cameras that we surface on our mobile app and our website, again, have existed for a while, but you kind of get the ability to remarket it to an audience that wasn't previously aware. So, I think creating those more immersive, maybe mobile-friendly experiences gave us a little bit of a new lease on life to make a new segment of fans that weren't previously engaged with those, aware of those platforms. So, again, I think there's certainly the need to continue to evolve and grow. But I think this year, among others, created some opportunities to maybe resurface some things that had been in place for a while, but maybe didn't get the scale of audience.
Certainly makes sense. Obviously, you're seeing a lot of different organizations invest in different technology platforms and other methods of digital fan engagement with everything COVID related this year. Has the COVID-19 pandemic reaffirmed any decisions that you've made in your technology investments? And conversely, is there anything you wish you had rolled out or adopted earlier as a result of all of this? Christi, we can start with you.
I would say that going into COVID-19, we kind of knew, speaking about the in-stadium experience first and foremost, we knew we wanted to move in a direction where, people were on their mobile devices, utilizing their mobile devices, and we were able to create a targeted experience for those fans in stadium. So I think some of that technology we invested in, whether it was through our app or through AI or push notifications through our app, that technology we had already started to invest in. So when we went into this season and needed to expand, kind of the baseline was there, and we were able to quickly like flip the switch and provide more ticketing information, provide more COVID-19 information, target fans who were going to a specific game or had arrived at the stadium, and send them their survey that they needed in real time to enter the stadium. Some of that baseline technology we invested in just before the season, just before COVID-19 hit, and it ended up kind of playing to our advantage. Conversely, I think there's definitely ways that we want to continue to target and provide meaningful experiences for the fans with that messaging when they're in stadium. That we're not 100% of the way there yet. The technology isn't totally 100% of the way there yet either. But I think that's kind of a long-term vision. And I would say, kind of going into the pandemic, when you look at like what we wish we had been further up to speed, is that like remote production aspect. But I think we weren't alone in that needing to ramp that up quickly and figure out solutions.
Gotcha. Tim, anything to add to that?
No, I think Christi raises a lot of good points. One of the things she referenced earlier was the free-to-play game, and I think that was a big a big win for us this year for a couple of reasons. One, I think it's a good engagement vehicle, but also, I mean, I think when we look at sports betting, and we talk about this quite a bit, where I think some of the other domestic-based sports are moving an illegal betting market to the legal side. I think for us, it's a little bit different in that we're in many ways trying to create a sports betting market, and a free-to-play game is a really good way not only to create engagement, but become an educational opportunity for those that are looking to bet on NASCAR in states where that's legal. So understanding prop bets or in-race bets or the way stage racing works or whatever the case may be. So I think that one was a big one. And I think, to the maybe challenge side, the one that I think we still haven't cracked the code on is virtual hospitality. I mean, for our sponsors that have such a deep investment in terms of their activation at venue around live events, I think we've come up with some good, I guess make goods, for lack of a better term, but we are definitely not there, and I think there's a big opportunity still to be had in that category.
I echo that 100%.
Donnie, in your conversations with other partners, and just for you guys on the Satisfi side, any other thoughts on what teams should and maybe shouldn't have invested in over the course of the last 7 or 8 months?
Joe, you have a great voice, Joe. Have we told you that yet?
Thank you. I'll take it.
I'd like you to read me a book or something. I got to tell you, I learned a valuable lesson when I entered this business. I've never had or sat in the seat of either the two people on this panel or many of the people listening. So I never criticize unless it's like in my best interest as a founder and CEO. I think what people are finding, I'll tell you right now, the SMS is going to rise. I think the SMS usage is going to go crazy now, because I think what people are realizing and seeing is an investment in that platform. And Christi's worked on the Apple Business Chat, which is another paradigm along that line. Email is really starting to fall off in many ways. And so if email was the only strategy to really communicate digitally, there's a lot of struggles with that. NASCAR is a company that's gone omni-channel quickly. Like when I first met Tim and learned about what they were doing, it was, we're doing all of this stuff, and we have esports, so we have a new market going. These two, I think, have done some great things. So if the communication channels that are open are very small, I think that lack of investment hurt a lot of people. I also just think that looking forward, voice is going to be the next investment. So whether it happens the next 3 months or 6 months, and we are very aggressively launching products in this arena. Now that people are home, and many are going to remain home, if people that missed maybe the digital messaging part should just jump to voice and maybe start focusing towards that, because that is the next thing. By June, I think you'll see a huge uptick in voice commerce and voice communication through Alexa, Google, etc.
Certainly makes sense. So Christi, if you don't mind telling us, what have you guys kind of put in place that's creating like efficiencies for new experience for this kind of new era of fan experience and making everything easier for people who are coming into the venue now?
I'll start with the AI piece that we've been talking about. So we originally had sort of that in-app hub to ask questions, kind of with a general answer base. And what we've done this year is expanded both into our digital ticketing guide and then Apple Business Chat and our website, as Donnie mentioned. So I think the digital ticketing guide in particular was important because not only this year did we, have new policies in general, but we went 100% mobile ticketing. So in the past, it was an option. This year, it was required. There was no stock tickets, no hard cards for season pass members. So there was a big learning curve for a lot of people who had never used mobile to enter the stadium for the first time. So investing in that digital ticketing guide has been super helpful, as we can see from the numbers. The usage of that is significant. And then to the Apple Business Chat piece, where, as you guys have all mentioned, the Omni platform element of being able to communicate when you want to, how you want to, just gives people that opportunity to interact in iMessage. It's not replicated on Androids at the moment, but those two pieces with AI in particular, and then the efficiencies of being able to target, I think I mentioned again, the push alert piece and the integration we have with Rover and Ticketmaster in our app through Yinscam, all those parties working together to really create targeted messages that we're able to utilize to communicate has been huge.
Tim, have you kind of had similar experiences with the approach to digital ticketing and everything that Christi just mentioned there?
Absolutely. I think the digital ticketing, I think, is where we wanted to go. I think this year, gave us a nice firm shove in that direction, and we just moved a little quicker. I think, one of the maybe unusual things about the NASCAR business specifically this year is traditionally NASCAR has served as the sanctioning body, and then there are different companies that have operated the racetracks. Going into this year, we went through a partnership exercise, and now are kind of one organization with one of the track operations groups. And that was always going to be a steep learning curve, how to operate as one organization. Doing it this year certainly steepened that curve, right? But I think, whether it's digital ticketing, whether it's wayfinding within the venue, you're also presented with the challenge of our venues are enormous. For anyone that's ever been to some of these venues like Daytona or Indy or Talladega, I mean, these are monstrosity of sporting venues where it's a challenge enough to navigate, certainly for a first-time fan. So I think from mobile ticketing to wayfinding to parking assists, whatever the case may be, I think, like Christi said, always things that we wanted to do, but certainly those were accelerated this year.
Appreciate that. I couldn't agree more. Until I was actually in one, I didn't realize how huge a NASCAR venue was. And then I think it was 2 years ago where Virginia Tech and Tennessee played at Bristol. I was like, this is absurd how large this venue is.
That's right. I mean, if you can put a football field in the infield of a track, you're dealing with another size and scale.
It's crazy is what it is. Donnie, in terms of the Satisfi side, anything else that you've kind of found that like teams like still aren't, getting, or like things that you notice that maybe everyone else kind of isn't, in terms of creating efficiencies within like keeping people safe and getting people into stadiums and all that sort of thing?
It's a very critically worded question there, Joe. I'd say. The only thing I would say is I think people are very much pointed to 2021 with, how far does this need to go? Like, when's the time? So we have a lot of sports right now that are thinking, can I open up at limited capacity in April? Can I open up limited capacity in June? I spoke to someone recently that's planning for September. So I just think the one mistake would be, don't wait for 2 months before that potential event to start building the digital relationship. I think now, actually, the uncertainty is the time. One of the value adds that AI does provide here is so many people have questions right now, and we should engage them and get their information to add them to a subscription list now, because the questions that they're asking can be either answered or in a new system that we're launching, subscribed to. So I just think that, we have seen customers, and I'll just use the ones outside of sports because there's some of those who have said, you know what, I'm not doing anything until I know what's going to happen. There's like a missed opportunity there. I think there's a missed opportunity to engage them now and perhaps push them to another platform like a YouTube channel for the Bucks or something that esports, maybe with Twitch, on the NASCAR circuit. Like there's other things to get them engaged in so we can sell to them when the ticketing and the events come back. Just waiting, I think, would be the mistake.
Certainly makes sense. Christi, in your guys' experience with the Bucks, looking back, what decisions did you all make pre-COVID-19 pandemic that you think have positioned you well for the future?
I think we spoke to quite a bit of it on the technology decisions that we've made. I think one thing I want to highlight or emphasize that was such a key part of having success in this year is the value of like the team in place, the processes in place, the vendors you have in place, and the way you all work together. Because if there was anything that came out of this year, it's you need to move fast, and you need to have people willing to work together. And it's not just a team to vendor relationship. It's 3 vendors, a team. It's multiple levels of integration to be successful. And I think just having those solid baselines of relationships and processes in place are so critical to having success. And I don't want to lose sight of that in we invested in this or invested in this. It's really about doing what you have in place well, and like being able to work in an efficient way, whether that's how you're communicating or just the relationships you have in place.
Tim, certainly NASCAR's the moving fast is what you guys are all about, but do you feel like you've tackled the other aspects of what Christi's talking about here well?
I think so. I think we're pleased, I guess, for lack of a better adjective, right? I mean, you can't relax too much knowing that we've got this is another couple of months before we can even think about things going back to normal, whatever normal might be. But what I think Christi's point about having to move quickly and not overthink things. I mean, I think we'd all agree one of the more frustrating things about trying to operate a business is you've got this tendency to fall back on, well, we've always done it this way, so let's do it this way. I think over the last couple of months, there was no such thing as that. There was no such thing as we've always done it this way, because no one had ever done it this way. So I think it kind of forced the issue on being a little bit more fluid and making some decisions on the fly without overthinking it and going too far down those paths. So I think we're again happy with the way things have gone this year. But I think what we've said for the last couple of months is shame on us if we come out of this and just go back to the way it was before. What's going to make all of us better collectively is learning from doing things in a different way and applying that going forward, whether it needs to happen or not. Almost put that aside, that if you can operate more effectively and more efficiently, then just do that, because that's the right way to approach it. As simple as that may sound, I think it's hard to change habits that have been built over years and years.
Don, what do you excuse me, what are you finding with your other partners in terms of how what's happening now is going to influence their technology decisions for the long term?
Well, now to Christi's point, everything has to be in some container. So some partners, and she could speak to this well too, some partners have chosen the app as home base. So we're going to make home base, an asset that we drive a lot of the content in. We've also seen that Major League Baseball, obviously being a large partner of ours, where the app focus, even though it's called Ballpark, there was a lot that needed to be done to keep the fan engaged in that. I think what Tim probably might speak to is more how they have a different strategy about how they can go wide across the audience because it is so high omni-channel. So when you talk to each partner, it's, well, where do you want to bring the fan? Do you want to bring, is there a certain preferred place and then hit everywhere, or do you hit everywhere and wherever you catch them, then drive the engagement? So we've just been learning, which a lot of what we do is learn how people are approaching their digital strategy and focus on where they want to focus first and then branch out, and how our technology and other partners, like we work with the food ordering vendors and the POS companies, we work with the ticketing providers. So how do we all work together to get all these channels lit correctly, but not for our benefit? Maybe Tim doesn't like some voice product that, well, that's not true. Tim will like it because I'll pitch it really well. But let's say there's some product that I make up that he doesn't like, because his strategy might be something different. So I think it's important that the partners and vendors listen to the strategy first, not try to push something that we might be good at.
We've talked a bit about strategy for voice activated devices, Alexa, Google Home, and the like earlier in the broadcast. But Christi and Tim, I would love if you guys could shed a little bit of insight, if you can, into how your organizations respectively have approached that kind of technology and how you can engage with fans that way over the last year or so. Tim, if you want to start, or Christi. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I was just going to say mine'll be quick because we've just started. We've got an Alexa flash briefing every day at this point, and that's where we're at right now. But I do agree that there's more opportunity down the line.
Yeah, we've got something similar. We've got flash briefing, and we've added some of our podcasts to the Alexa skill. I think one of the other things that we have that's a little bit unique is, I talked earlier about the in-car audio. So for those that may not be aware, what that is it's essentially, kind of in football terms, if you were eavesdropping on the communication between quarterback and coach in the huddle, we've got that with our drivers. They're communicating with their crew chiefs and spotters, which is a really unique fly on the wall experience. We put that onto both the Amazon and the Google voice platforms. And I think we see that kind of in two ways. One, I think it's, again, a unique experience that we can put on voice platforms, but I know Don referenced the growth of those platforms. I think we agree, and it's a little bit of a kind of a Trojan horse, right? It's a futures game for us, where now that we have a presence rather on those voice platforms, as they start to become, they're going to be, across hotel rooms and integrated into cars and all that sort of thing. Now we kind of exist there as those platforms start to grow and expand. So I think it's kind of both the short term and the longer term play for us.
Speaking of short-term versus long-term plays, what have you all kind of learned so far that will help with the short-term planning versus the kind of long-term planning, just as it pertains to the digital and technology side of things, specifically? Christi, if you want to start.
I do think that what we've learned is that this has, I think we spoke on it, but despite fewer fans in venue, we've seen the mobile adoption skyrocket. So I think what we've learned is the people who had like less of a comfort level with mobile devices and kind of doing more, more functioning on their mobile devices have really pushed through to kind of adopt that behavior. And so I think that's just going to continue to be something to note in the planning process as you look ahead. And then I think the other key thing that Tim hit on earlier is we look at short term in particular. There really isn't that substitute for in person quite yet. That virtual, that hospitality or that in person experience. Like, how can you continue to foster that community and reach people in a meaningful way in the short term while this isn't going away, because it's not the same, and that's probably the biggest short term challenge.
Yeah, I think on the experiences, the mobile experiences, second screen experiences, I think the expectations are just, they're at an all-time high from a fan and a user perspective. I think just as quickly as we can evolve and think, we've got this very unique augmented reality execution that we're going to embed in our apps. It's, consumers are now like, all right, well, what else do you have? From Don talked earlier about personalized content. I mean, there is the expectation level now is that you are catering to the fans with the content they want, when they want it, how they want it. And that's fair, right? I mean, there's a sense in kind of bemoaning how big of a challenge that is. That is the expectation through these platforms. And I think, to your question on long-term planning, man, I wish I had a good answer for you, because I think you get into long-term planning and then the world just moved and evolved so quickly that your best bet for long-term planning is to just be as nimble as possible. That, as you go through these development cycles, things are going to change and evolve in a good way. I mean, again, I think that's nothing but opportunity, both on the brand side as well as the consumer side. But I mean, it is a an instant gratification world that we live in, and I think we all have to cater to that.
Absolutely. People with improv training are really on top of things right now. Don, anything to add to what Christi and Tim were talking about there in terms of short-term and long-term planning?
I don't have a short-term plan anymore. It changes every 2 weeks. So, I think it's so difficult to get past. I think this is we're in the term. Like, I don't think there is I actually did a very inspiring speech to our company a few weeks ago that said, hey, there is no more pre-COVID, post-COVID. There just is. Like, we are just in it. It's the environment that we're in, and let's not plan for change. Let's just plan for what is. And that's uncertainty at a certain level. That's fans having certain comfortability. And that's how do we reach as many people as possible, as quickly as possible, and monetize those relationships. That's the plan. So I think what I appreciate is, Tim's comment on voice. We're building voice commerce connections as fast as we can, because if brands like and the Alexa flash briefing is a great step in. Once you step into these technologies, I think our plan is, well, then how are we going to make those transactions? So the conversations of today have to be the transactions of tomorrow. So we're kind of watching the customer base, and then we have to think 6 months ahead of them. So by the time Tim's like, hey, I have this huge voice audience, I can say, great, they can all buy stuff from you now. So that's where it's hard for us to do anything short term. We have to be 6 months ahead.
Absolutely. So my thought there is a lot of our folks in the audience now are in similar roles to yours, Christi and Tim, in that they're digital and tech centric for organizations that, unlike NASCAR and the NFL, are still trying to figure out what bringing fans back in a live capacity looks like. What have you learned going through this experience that you want those folks in similar positions to know as they try to figure out how to reopen with fans?
One thing in particular I think I would highlight is that a lot of the technology pieces in place, whether that's mobile ordering or ticketing or ways you're communicating, push alerts, a lot of these integrations are complex, and we were lucky in the sense that, we started one game, no fans, then we had, a small opening that wasn't, and then we expanded a little bit where we created a phased approach to be able to roll out some of these products. And I think that helped us identify where we were missing the mark in certain areas and how we could tweak and improve. And so I think no matter what you're doing, if you're able to create up mechanisms where you start small and roll it out, I think that that will help you pick up on some of the areas that you need to improve before everyone tries it and is like, well, this doesn't work, I'm not going back, So like, if you're able to kind of create those subsets, whether it's a small group at first and expand, I think that's really helpful in the product opening. And I just think making sure you're covering your bases on being able to communicate with fans, because I think a lot of the feedback we've gotten at the end of the day is they just want to feel informed, and if they feel informed, then they feel comfortable about the experience.
Couldn't agree more. I think Christi hit on two really important points. I think one is the communication, which I think we all too often overlook. We're in such a hurry to execute and put these experiences in place that then it's time to flip the switch, and we're like, well, where is everyone? I think that and it's not promotion, it's literal communication, as Christi said. I mean, this is what we're doing and this is why, and it may not be perfect, but here's our intent. And I think the other point that she made that I couldn't agree with more is it doesn't need to be a one size fits all approach. I'll use an analogy to email marketing. You've got your options are you can bomb a message out to the entire list, which people love because they like the idea of hitting a big number. But what is always more effective is creating segments and messaging different experiences to those segments. And you're going to get smarter on the other side of that, one way or the other. You're either going to find that across all of those segments, this is the experience that works the best, so now we can roll it out at scale, or you're going to find that there's a couple that you're going to need to cater to specific segments of your fan base or your audience. But either way, I think there's value in that learning. So I think that's exactly right. I think it's the dialogue and the communication, and then the willingness to cater your message on a segmented basis.
Donnie, anything to add to that before we hop into audience Q&A here?
No, I like hearing from them. So I'm good. You can move on to the question.
Fair enough. So yeah, at this point, we're going to jump into some audience questions. If you all have any for our three panelists here, feel free to drop those in the questions tab in the chat. We'll start with this one from Chase. Regarding virtual hospitality, what observations have you all made thus far in this area? What things have you tried, and where do you see this growing in 2021 and beyond? Christi, if you want to start.
I think some of the biggest things we've done are virtual events, trying to get speakers in front of people that they want to hear from, creating contesting or tailored messages, to, as Tim mentioned earlier, segmenting different experiences. That's probably the biggest area we've touched on as far as the virtual hospitality goes. But we're still looking to expand what we can do.
Yeah, I think what we're finding is it's hard to multitask in the virtual world, right? I mean, I think if you have a kind of your traditional hospitality environment, there's a very social element to it, that maybe you can, whether it's within a suite or whether it's tailgating or whatever the case may be, there's different experiences that you can offer in a relatively small footprint. And I think it's really hard to replicate that in a virtual environment, because you want to engage your most valuable partners, but you also want to add value to the sponsors, and whether that's data acquisition or information capture, whatever the case may be. I just think it's really hard to replicate that in a virtual environment, which seems counterintuitive, because I think everyone kind of seamlessly jumped from having meetings in person to doing them virtually over Zoom. And I think maybe the reflex is to think that that's how you could maybe reinvent or respin the hospitality experience. But I don't think it's that easy. I think it's more nuanced.
Okay. Donnie, what are some of the things that you guys are doing on your side to kind of enable your partners like the Bucs and NASCAR to put some of these virtual hospitality ideas into application?
Yeah, it's interesting because the communication Tim just mentioned has to be layered. So actually, a customer came up with a very cool idea recently. They're creating a know before you go, almost like a drip campaign through SMS, and so you're able to now acquire certain information about the ticket holder to the either a virtual event or a physical event. But you start to create these communication layers of, hey, here's the things we want you to check in. Oh, by the way, you checked out this, so now we're going to layer this in. So the entire hospitality journey starts very early now, and you have selling and upselling opportunities along the way. So I think a lot of people used to send a ticket and, hey, here's a bunch of information that you might be interested in, click here, do this, do that. But creating these conversational automated experiences to navigate in this virtual hospitality world is very cool. And we have customers in the hospitality industry as well that are driving us towards this like concierge, but it's very dynamic and personalized. So like imagine segmenting, but in a conversational AI environment. It's very deep, and you can get a lot of good data about the consumer base from that.
Riley asks, do you all feel that fans and sponsors are encountering Zoom fatigue? And if so, how are you combating that? Christi, if you want to start.
Yes, I do. And so that's the short-term planning. How do you come up with other experiences that, aren't necessarily a virtual Zoom event? Can you do various activities that people can do on their own time, whether that's like digital scavenger hunts throughout town or touch points or just interactive ways that people can feel connected, but still, be on their own time, not sitting in front of a computer, and experience the brand. That's, consistently what we're thinking through, that type of thing, because I do think they are fatigued. I think the data showed it on our end over time.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's, maybe that's the nagging feeling that all of us have that has, is slowing down the evolution of this virtual hospitality, because I think we all wonder if that's, of all the things that will come out of this year that are here to stay, is that one? And I don't know the answer to that question, but it feels like, the Zoom fatigue, I think is spot on, and I think everyone is feeling it. And I think there's probably a pretty good chance that when you look at things that are here to stay versus things that will maybe go back to quote unquote normal, I think those social experiences will be one of the things that goes back to normal. And maybe this is the wrong analogy to use, but I'm a big fan of VR. I think it has its practical applications. But one of the things that I don't think it has replaced, that a lot of people thought that it would, was this social experience of watching a sporting event. I think that scale is still relatively small. I think the idea of going to a sporting event, whether that be as a sponsor or a partner or as a fan, I think is one that will maybe look a little bit more like normal than other parts of the sport.
Emily asks, what opportunities do you see for sponsors to help with the new fan experience?
I think, the ability for brands and sponsors to maybe collaborate on driving first party data, so that, back to the point that Christi made earlier, that it can become a dialogue to find out what that preferred engagement looks like. I think certainly between a sponsor and a brand, you can put together a virtual experience that you take to the fans or to the consumers. But if that's what we want collectively versus what the fans want, then I think it'll fall flat. So I think the ability to have an experience that also drives some data acquisition, kind of on the selfish side, but also so that you can establish that dialogue, I think that's going to be beneficial.
Christi,
and the ability, I would just add, I agree with that, and the willingness to try different things, because a lot of this is trial and error right now as we all navigate through it. So just being open to brainstorm, to collaborate, and to try something that might not work at the end of the day, but at least you're learning.
Makes sense. Keith asks, with this year's pandemic and Google's changes regarding third-party cookies, how will you rebuild or strengthen your value proposition to advertisers and sponsors? A lot of sponsorship questions today. Christi, if you want to start with that.
I am not sure that this totally applies to our sponsorships.
Fair enough.
We would continue to focus on on the brand and the association with our brand from a sponsorships perspective. So, and we're not necessarily facilitating third-party advertising with ours. So I'm not sure I'm the best person to speak to on this one.
I think way too much about this. So I'm happy to jump in. I mean, I think, we, during the last iOS release, there was some talk of making some aggressive changes to cookies and tracking, and I think it gave us a mild panic attack, just because I agree that it's the right direction to go. I just think we've got a lot of work to do to better position ourselves to utilize first party data. And back to the previous answer, I mean, I think we've got to get better at creating that transaction. And I mean transaction in a literal sense. I think if we're going to try to collect first party data from our users and our fans and our consumers, we've got to be willing to give them something in return. And whether that's a tailored content experience, whether that be discounts, whatever that is, I think we've just got to be prepared to meet our side of that transaction, because the dependency on third-party cookies is going to evaporate rapidly, and I think we certainly, it's incumbent on us to be prepared for that shift.
Tomas, apologies if I'm mispronouncing that, but Tomas asks, is the industry moving toward a quote-unquote best of breed approach when dealing with venue tech, or are still many teams or organizations building technologies in-house? If yes, what are the benefits and downfalls of outsourcing those technologies? Does that question make sense to you all?
I mean, I think from our standpoint, we very much are we don't house a lot of that technology in-house. It is more of an outsourced relationship. You've got a couple key people who lead the relationships, but as far as the technology itself, we're outsourcing.
Same for us. And I would say one of the things that, if I'm trying to be optimistic about things that will come out of 2020 is I think there will be, and you've already seen some of them, you'll have organizations that will be kind of crafted through the challenges that have come out of 2020, that will be very beneficial to Christi's organization and to NASCAR as well, of thinking about problems that didn't exist before a few months ago. So I think the ability to find the right mix of outsourced vendors and partners to tackle those problems, I think is going to be one of the bright spots of coming out of 2020.
Certainly makes sense. And we'll get this one in from Chase as well. Since 2020 has brought the world to us through a virtual lens, do you foresee the traditional fan going through a transition with the emergence of digital platforms like Twitch merging with live sports? Tim, I know you guys have been heavily involved in some of the Twitch stuff with the virtual racing and esports stuff. So if you want to kick this off, that'd be great.
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually having this conversation earlier today. I think that Twitch is really going to push the traditional broadcasters to evolve their model. I think the leaned back passive experience of watching sports or anything for that matter, I think is going to start to change quite a bit. And I think platforms like Twitch are accelerating that. You're multitasking. I can't remember the last time that I watched something on TV for any extended period of time where I didn't also look at my phone, or maybe I'm even looking something up relative to the programming that I'm watching. But, I think the ability certainly in sports broadcasts to integrate stats or social media content, whatever the case may be, I really think that's going to start to evolve. I think it already is evolving, and I think it will continue to.
I agree. And I don't know if you've had the chance to watch any of the Thursday night football broadcasts on Twitch from the NFL this year, but that's been fascinating to watch from that lens. And not only the interactivity, but like being able to choose who you want to experience the game with, from the person calling the game. So, or hosting the stream. So that's I agree. I think it's going to be very interesting to watch in the future.
Christi, I think the question on everyone's mind is, when are we going to get Tom Brady streaming Among Us?
Get Tom Brady what? Streaming?
Get Tom Brady to stream Among Us. I don't know.
On Twitch?
Esports joke. Anyway.
You got Mike Evans.
Yeah, fair enough. Donnie, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I love Twitch platform, and what I think is fascinating is like some of the new products we released, like this partnership with StatMuse we did in the NFL, which is coming to NBA and NHL. I think the broadcasters provide us information, not always the information we want. Like how many passing yards does Tom Brady have against this opponent would be something you could engage in, get the answer while you're watching the game, not waiting for Joe Buck, whether you're a fan or not, to throw that statistic out there. So we're very passionate about making the two-screen experience one where you can watch and basically get any on-demand information you want about the game, and then feed that back to the brands. If I'm watching a NASCAR race, or the rights holders, I should be telling Tim, hey, this is what this fan base was asking about this race while they're watching about this driver, about their income, about different things they've done. That is the future, and I'm 100% behind it. And stay tuned. We'll have some announcements soon.
Awesome. Before we start wrapping up, Siddharth asked this question. I want to make sure we get to it. What are some of the basic tools / concepts to learn for someone just starting off in the digital tech / marketing world? Christi, if you want to start.
I think Tim hit on one of those concepts earlier in segmentation. And I think when I early on was trying to get myself more up to speed, I basically was like, okay, I'm gonna launch my own little website and see what I can do here, and buy some Facebook advertising, buy some Google advertising. I mean, pennies, dollars, just to like see how you can reach different people and learn the tools that exist to kind of drive an audience. And that was sort of the initial baseline I started with.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think the other thing is, the building your own network of resources is huge. I mean, I think one of the things that I like most about working in sports is, having that network of people that have gone through similar challenges and experiences, and being able to lean on them for, what do you do in this scenario, or how did you tackle this? So I think that is there's a lot that you can learn from reading about the space, but even more you can learn from people who have gone through it firsthand, for sure.
Definitely.
Donnie, anything to add there?
I do not pretend to speak to the experience of my colleagues. I will withdraw from this question.
Fair enough. All right.
You want to start an AI company? You could ask me how to do that.
I don't think we can cover all of that in the 2 minutes that we have left. So we'll just we'll start wrapping up then. Do want to say thank you to Christi, Tim, and Donnie for joining us today. Highly encourage you all to connect with them on LinkedIn and Twitter, and obviously encourage you all to connect with each other on LinkedIn and Twitter as well. If you want to get notified about when we do more of these, encourage you all to subscribe to the FOS newsletter. That's probably the easiest way to find out about future ones of these. And of course, want to say thank you again to our friends at Satisfi Labs for helping us put this on today. Until we meet again, stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy. Talk to you all soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.